I just got my first meter stack that I'll be using to give you an idea about the installation and configuration of our products. But before I go ahead and show you what's in these boxes, I wanted to highlight a few of the important design principles that our operation team takes into account when helping you design your network. And it all starts with optimizing the performance based on the environment that you have, because we are aware that a retail store is very different than a classroom, and a classroom is very different than a warehouse. Each of these environments have their own challenges, and especially when it comes to the wireless design, we take all of that into consideration to build a network that is not only resilient but also performs well. And talking about resiliency, as you can see in this overly simplified picture, we take every single step to make sure that if any of these devices or links fails, things will automatically reconverge and you will still have connectivity. And this is not just for security appliances and the core and distribution switches, but also when it comes to the access points. Because as you can see in this picture, some of them are home to one access switch, the others are home to the other. So in case one of the access switches fails, that if one of the access switches fails, you still have a good signal strength in all of your areas. As we finalize a design for you, we also make sure to overscope it slightly, because you don't want to be in a position where you just deploy it, a few weeks later you realize that you still need a few switch ports, for example, and then from day one all the switch ports were occupied. We're also talking about security, although this is a very important topic that I'll tackle in some of my next videos. So let's see what's in all these boxes, starting with an outdoor access point. The access point in itself is fairly small, as you can see here. It comes by default with omnidirectional antennas, although if required we can scope it with patch ones. On the bottom we have mounting plate, screws and fixtures in case you want to place it, for example, on a pole. I then ordered 2 indoor access points, and the reason for this is that I want one of them to be my observer, and that is an access point that is placed at the client level and runs constant tests, notifying us in case there is any degraded performance, even without anybody using the actual Wi-Fi. And this is the access point itself. Next, we have the security appliance. You have a bunch of WAN and LAN ports, and you can actually, through the software, decide exactly what their role should be. And as you can see, the device has a small form factor. On the back, you have ports for the integrated LTE that allows us to access the network even if your primary ISP links are down. And by default, all our security appliances come with this capability without an additional cost. And obviously, I have the second security appliance to test high availability. And one more note, if you do go for the bigger ones, they'll actually take the whole rack space. This is the power distribution unit, and unfortunately it's not something I can use here in Europe because, as you can notice, it is actually built for the US. Currently, Meter supplies third-party PDUs to customers outside the US, and that's something that our operations team manages in-house. However, in the long term, we'll actually have modules that can work in any geography. The PDU is quite nice because on the front, it allows you to connect to your network and then toggle all these sockets remotely. A great example here would be if your ISP modem is in an error state, you can then use the LTE connectivity to still have access to the PDU, reboot the modem, and hopefully bring your site back up online without you needing to physically travel to it. And last but not least, switching. As I mentioned previously, we have different switches depending on where you want to place them in the core, distribution, and access. And I got this one because I thought it gives me all the flexibility I need for testing. And here you are, the copper ports with the 1 or 10 gig SFPs to the side. And that's about it. Hopefully I gave you a good idea about the principles that our operations team uses when designing a fully redundant and performant network for you, and showed you a few of the devices that I'll be using in later videos for configuration and testing.